Ciao a tutti. Hello, everyone. We'll start in a couple of minutes. I'd like to know if you can hear me and see me. Please say hello in the chat box so that I know that I'm not speaking to myself. And if you have questions, I already have a few that I got by email. If you have questions, type them in the chat box and I'll answer them right away. Don't wait until the end. I'd like to know if this is working. I don't do this often. Please say hello in the chat box so that I know that I'm not alone. And also, I'm looking forward to your questions because I do have some tips that I want to share with you. But if you ask questions, it's going to be more relevant to you. But I always have some advice. And this is going to be in English because this is a guide, a Q&A about learning languages, specifically Italian. And I'm going to give tips and answer questions about how to learn faster. This is meant for beginners. I might occasionally speak some Italian, and you are encouraged to do so. If you want to show off, type all the Italian you know, ask questions in Italian, it's okay. But it's time to start. Hi everyone, my name is Stefano. I'm your Italian language coach, the author of the website Fluent Simple. Today, I'm going to share a few tips to give some advice to learn Italian faster and to answer your questions. I'd like to know if you're online and if you can hear me and see me. Please type something in the chat box, say hello, don't be shy. You can do that in English, Italian, or any other language as far as I'm concerned. I do have a few questions I received by email from Anna. I'm not sure if she's online now. Since she was so kind to send me her questions by email. I'd like to know if she's online, as I can wait for a few minutes. In the meantime, I'll give you a few tips I always give about learning languages and learning Italian. Many people who studied languages at school and also by themselves, their method is usually skewed towards grammar and translation. And as a result, they can kind of understand, especially written text. They can understand some Italian, but they cannot speak. And that's normal because if you don't speak when you're studying, that it's unlikely that you'll be able to speak when you need to. And that's why I made my own Italian course with a focus on speaking. That's the best alternative to having a conversation with native speakers. If you take a lesson of Ripeti con me is my signature Italian course, you'll be prompted to speak all the time. You can't sleep through the lesson. And that keeps you engaged. And at the end of the day, you have practice speaking Italian for 20 minutes or so. It easily fits your daily schedule, and that's the best alternative to conversation. If you are using other material, could be reading or listening, watching YouTube videos, you should turn all your study time into speaking practice. If you're reading, read it aloud. If you're listening, repeat. If you're watching, stop, go back, repeat, take notes, and repeat. That's my number one advice. If you want to be able to speak, you should be practice speaking. If the material is not ideal, the situation is not ideal, you don't have anyone with you to practice speaking, you can do it by yourself. It takes a little discipline because it's easy, it's more convenient to watch silently or listen quietly, but everything comes through one ear and out from the other. That's why I always prompt you to repeat in my language course, ripeti con me. I see that someone joined us. I'd like you to say hello. I want to know your name, where you're from, how long you studied Italian, and what your pain is, what your issue is about learning Italian or languages in general. If you have a specific question, type it in the chat box and I'll answer it right away. I also gave the possibility, the chance to ask questions beforehand, and I did get a few, and I'm going to answer them now while I'm waiting for your questions from you who are watching. Remember to say hello, your name, where you live, where you're from, about your history with learning Italian. Could be how long you studied, why you learning Italian, and what you're struggling with, or what you're wondering about learning Italian. For now, I'll answer. I do have quite a few questions from Anna. Is Anna here? If you're there, say hello. There's a chat box there. Question 1. It is well known that to learn a new language fast, it is necessary to focus on learning the top 100, 500, 1,000 words and phrases that make up about 50 to 90% of that language text. Could you please share the list of those top words in the Italian language? I do have some material for that. One is a list of the 1,000 most common Italian words. This is the link. There are many word lists out there. Some, well, first you should think about what is relevant to you. Some word lists are taken from movie scripts. They're more colloquial. And others are taken from the media. They're more formal and they deal with different topics. Personally, I chose one and added a translation, and it's also sorted by parts of speech, like nouns, adjectives, verbs, and others. If you want a word list, that's a good start. You can download it and use it as a basis for your vocabulary. However, the problem with word lists is that in order to learn words and expressions, you need context. You need context, and a list doesn't really say anything about how, when to use them. That's why in my Italian course, I use sentences. You listen and repeat sentences that make sense, that are useful in the real world. And by being exposed to those words and repeating them, you become familiar, eventually remember them. I wouldn't use the word memorize. It sounds like a machine. You should be using those words in order to acquire them. That's the right word. Lisa, oh, a familiar name. Lisa from California. Lisa started Italian 2 years ago. Good. Grazie, Lisa. If you have questions, type them in the chat box. In the meanwhile, I'll keep. One was about the words. The same goes for common phrases. I also have a list of common phrases and sentences. Here's another link. Again, they're all useful sentences. They're correct. They're useful, common, basic. However, it's not that you automatically learn them just by looking at them. You need to put them into practice. Ideally, that should be with a native speaker in real life conversation. The second best is to still use them even by yourself, but in speaking, not just reading, not just listening. And that's what Ripeti con me does. For those who are not familiar with Ripeti con me, here's more information if you're wondering. This is my own Italian course. It's an audio course because the most important and overlooked aspect when learning a language is usually speaking. People learn grammar rules, translate, but then they can barely introduce themselves. And it's not their fault, it's the method. So this was about wordless and phrases. Yes, it makes sense to start from the most common ones, but if it were only about looking at words, you could just grab a dictionary, but it's not that simple. So you need to put it in practice, and you can do that with Ripeti con me. The second question, I wonder if Anna is here. This question was from Anna. In any case, thank you. The second question, could you please recommend me some Italian children's poems and songs, which are very popular in Italy and will help to learn fast Italian language and culture? I do have a collection of Italian songs to learn Italian. Here's the link. I'll type songs here. They are sorted by level. There are also some children's songs. My favorite, I think it's in the list. It's called Per fare. What's the Italian title? Per fare un albero. Per fare un tavolo. I think I forgot. It's fare l'albero. Per fare un tavolo. It's a story about, yeah, it's per fare un tavolo. To make, volevo un gatto nero. That's also a cute one, especially because I love cats. Yes. My favorite is per fare un tavolo, literally to make a table, in order to make a table. It's a series of logical processes. To make a table, you need wood. To make wood, you need a tree. To make a tree, you need a seed. It's a very cute way to learn words. Grammar is basic. And it's also educational for children because it makes you think about consequences or what comes or what is needed in order to do something. And Volevo un gatto nero is about literally means I wanted a black cat. It's a classic. It's very cute. It's about a deal of exchanging animals. I wanted a black cat. You didn't, so I'm not going to play with you anymore. That's the lyrics. That's also recommended. But with songs, remember that often since they are lyrics, are not necessarily grammatically correct. Take it with a pinch of salt, but it's a fun way to learn. Yes. If you have other questions or favorite songs, just type them in. By the way, I just noticed that the user who typed Volevo un gatto nero, the username is also Black Cat Play. That's cute. Laura Pausini. Personally, I don't listen to pop music, but she's very popular. So if you listen to pop music, yes, she's very famous. I personally I listen to opera, but the Italian you find in opera is you can't use it in real conversations. So it depends on your personality. But that would sound weird in daily conversation. So yeah, pop music is better to learn real Italian. The next question. In the meantime, if you do have questions, type them in. I'll answer right away. For now, I'm answering questions that I received by email beforehand, before the webinar. The next question is, could you recommend some movies online that help to improve listening skills? Movies are the kind of difficult advanced material because they're long, they're complex, they speak, they use a lot of slang. I can give you some personal preferences. Well, a classic is Life is Beautiful by Benigni. La vita è bella. It's a story during World War II. Got many Oscars. And personally, if you want I don't know if you can find with subtitles, but a movie I watched recently, it's about Italian politics, society. It's all you laugh from the beginning to the end. Lisa watches series on Amazon Prime. Oh, what's your favorite one, Lisa? You know better than me because I don't watch TV series. Pane e tulipane. What is it about? Pane e tulipane. I think it's famous. I heard the title, but I don't know. Pane e tulipane. I think I'll watch it also. There's a movie about just an average guy who, by chance or by mistake, becomes the prime minister of Italy. Actually, there are two movies. One is the sequel. In the first one, he becomes the head of state. In Italy, we have two positions. One is, you could call the prime minister. One is the head of state. I don't know what the English for it is. And comedy about a woman gets lost and falls in love in Venice. It's very Italian. You know, I've never been to Venice. And that one is called Benvenuto Presidente. And I found it online somehow. Now I don't remember where, but it didn't have subtitles. But they do speak quite clearly, and there's a lot of action and fun to have. Lisa, the English title is Full Disclosure. The English title, Full Disclosure. Is that an Italian series? I don't know. And there's another question here. Stefano Venezia. Yeah, that's right. Never been to Venice. Well, never been to many places. I'm more into Asia, honestly. Right now I'm in Japan, and I lived for about 10 years by now. abroad. I don't live in Italy, and usually I'm in Asia. Well, there's a lot of world to see. The next question. My current level of Italian is somewhere between A1 and A2. My goal is to reach at least level 1, required to pass the test of the Common European Framework Reference for Languages. That's a system or a framework to classify language skills. B1 means intermediate. That's what you would probably call conversationally fluent. You make mistakes, but you get understood, and you can talk about different topics, even although with small mistakes and using simple words. Could you please advise some of the most relevant learning materials to pass the test? I don't. Japanese love Italy. Yes, the Japanese love Italy. I was lucky. I was able to do many things here that I wouldn't have been able to do in other countries. And I learned Italian. It's the fourth foreign language studied in Japan after English, Chinese, and Korean. More than French, more than Spanish, more than German. If I parli cinese o giapponese, Lisa asks me if I speak Japanese or Chinese. Yes, especially Japanese because I did university here. I also Chinese. I do translations from Chinese, Japanese, and Korean occasionally. Now with the virus, I guess it's because the virus had less job translation orders, but I also do other things. I teach, and now I have the website. I want to focus on the website, so I don't do much translation now. Yes. About passing tests. Honestly, I don't cover this because I always encourage people to learn for the sake of learning and not passing exams. Because most my students, they want to learn for communication, and that's another world separate from taking exams. You can be an exam machine, get all the answers right, and then be just average in conversation or other aspects as well. So no, I don't have any information about passing exams. I'm sorry, but for sure, if you study only for exams, you don't become fluent. If you use the right method to become fluent, then as a result, you're also in a good position to pass the exam. You only need to get into the logic of understanding the structure, the kind of questions they ask, the topics they cover. But you also don't start too early to focus on the exam. Personally, I've taken a few certification exams, proficiency tests, as they call them. I would just buy like a collection of the past editions of the test and study on that, but not earlier than 1 month before the exam. Before that, I would take lessons and do my stuff as usual. I wasn't living for the exam. And even without exam, some learning materials, take many language apps, it's the same thing. It's another word from speaking to choosing the right answers in quizzes. Many apps you find quizzes, the most popular in Duolingo. You type your way through the lesson, and you feel powerful, you feel immortal, and the all cheers you, and then you meet an Italian, and then you're not an owl, you're a fish. So you should be speaking. Also, because by speaking, you remember, you acquire better what you need in other, including other situations, including tests, exams. Thank you, Anna, for the questions. I hope you're there, or but anyway, you can watch this. You can only watch the recording. Lisa is asking or requesting something. I could provide more exercises, practice about conjunctive or subjunctive mode. I do have lessons about the subjunctive in Repeticum Me. It's an advanced topic. Actually, in many grammar textbooks, it's included in the intermediate grammar. I have a different view of language levels and language skills. You can say a lot of things, virtually anything, without using the subjunctive, and you can make mistakes about the subjunctives a lot, and you're allowed to do that because even Italians do it. Anyway, you do find lessons at the end of Repeticum Me. After a certain point, I don't remember, it was about lesson 200, or a bit earlier than that, maybe 180 or something. Then it's all about subjunctives, because I cover advanced grammar patterns. They all require subjunctive. So if you take any advanced lesson in Repeticum Me, you get to practice the subjunctive every day. You're right that the subjunctive is not covered in the online tests I have. I tend to focus on basic content because that's where most of the demand is. But Repeticum Me covers all levels. You start from lesson 1, I am, you are, and you end with the subjunctive. But I do have some lessons to come. Now there are 215 lessons, and I have material for another 40 or so, and they all include the subjunctive. I only need to write some sentences. I haven't written all of them, and then I have to record them, edit them. But I'm keeping because I have so much to do for the website, and also because most of my users are in the beginner or elementary stage. And Repeticum Me, a black cat is asking, how do you mirror repeat? You mean shadowing? That's the word. Shadow. Like you hear something, you speak along with it. In Repeticum, you're exposed to a certain sentence many times. First, you hear it in English, then you hear it in Italian, then you hear it in Italian again. That's the file, that's file A. There are 3 files, A, B, C. You hear it once, and then you try to repeat it. Even mumbling is okay. Then in file B, you hear the English, you try to recollect, and then you mumble it again. In file C, again, you speak along with the speaker, and you just become familiar with it, that almost unconsciously you get to speak along. Some people it takes more time, others less. The more you mumble, the better, the faster you make progress. And there is like no secret technique. You shouldn't wait until the end of the sentence. You should try to speak along. You can, doesn't matter if you sound weird because you're just mumbling. That's how we learn as babies. They wouldn't show us a grammar book or write words on a whiteboard. Sure, if you were exposed to a sentence out of nothing, yeah, you'd be puzzled by the sentence. But you know what it means. You already heard it before. You have time to repeat it, many chances to repeat it. So take a lesson. Don't worry if you can't repeat everything, if you can't recollect everything, even if you understand everything, each word. Take an idle sleep, and you'll be surprised to feel that words are already popping in out of nothing in your mind. That's how it works. That's why I recommend a night of sleep between 2 lessons. Black Cat is asking, along with whispering, the volume is not a factor. You could be shouting, you could be whispering. But now we all wear masks, so even if you're opening your mouth in public, the people cannot see. Anyway, no, volume is not an issue. Whoa, time flies. It's already been more than half an hour. If you have a question, this is your last chance. Else, I shared a few tips with you. If you're already using my website and you like, I find that if I speak too loud, I can't hear the rest of the sentence. Yes, that's true. You cover the speaker, but that's a sign that you're speaking. But yes, you should be shouting. You can also take like mini pauses mini breaks to check if you're saying correctly. But I mean, the speaker is not will not take it personally because it's recording, even if you're covering the voice. And if you like what I'm doing, well, I cannot do everything by myself. Please leave a review if you're already a happy user of my lessons. If you're not happy, don't write a review, but tell me personally. I do these webinars occasionally. Sometimes I do it in Italian, sometimes I do it in English. Today is it's like an overview of language learning and answering questions. Sometimes I do this in Italian and to practice listening and conversation. Today it was a Q&A session. Pause. Pause, I mean that you pause, just a fraction of a second, but don't pause the audio because then you take it too easy. And the point of doing an audio lesson is that you play and then you're forced to speak all the time. This is many marketing pitches of language learning apps. They tell you, you can learn at your pace, match your learning style, and that means that you do one sentence, then you take a coffee, then you check a notification. No, if you want to learn, you keep the flow. You can measure that with like the waves in your brain. You need to keep speaking, thinking in that language, and not do anything. At least not doing other things that require language. You can drive, you can cook, do workout, yes, but no, your ideal pace probably is not the ideal pace. So press play and take the lesson. Then if you're not sure, you can review later on. Good. If you're happy, leave a review. If you have more questions, see you at the next webinar. Enjoy learning Italian. Keep the flow, your new mantra. Yes. And don't catch the virus. Also. Yeah. Ciao.